So, Kimbra, as you know, I am living in Rock Springs, Wyoming, and really learning a lot about our nation's history here. There's a lot of history. I live along the railroad, the Union Pacific Railroad that
Hmm.
they built, going across the country. Um, and I found that, it was a little surprising to me. I don't know why, because one of the states had to start it, but Wyoming was the first state to allow women to vote.
I had heard that. I
Yeah,
had
and I
heard that.
started doing some research. Now, there are different stories as to why, but one of the stories that I read online was that they couldn't get women to move here because it
Mm,
was so, unsettled. It was an unsettled territory. It was out west, and women didn't want to move here. So
right.
they let them vote. So they said, well, if the women will move here, they'll let them vote. But
That's
I
a
do,
good ploy.
yeah, I thought that, yeah, it worked
Yeah.
apparently. And I think they were pretty progressive. And the women that came here were, because they wanted the right to vote. So we had, more progressive women here,
Hmm.
which I also found interesting. So what we were going to do today is we're going to start doing some profiles of people. And I wanted to talk about Nellie Tayloe Ross, who I was invited and honored and privileged to play her character a couple of years ago in Rawlins, Wyoming, for the 150th anniversary celebration of Wyoming allowing women to vote.
Hmm.
Um, and I have to be honest, I was very busy at the time, and I was writing the little story the night before. And as we've talked on the podcast before, I need time to memorize things in order to give a performance. I'm not
Right.
good if I don't memorize it. So I didn't really have time to memorize it. I really didn't do it so well. So I'm hoping that I can read the story and share it now, and we can learn more about, really the point is learning about Nellie Tayloe Ross,
Sure.
who was the country's first female governor, which is
Mm.
also interesting. So
Hmm.
Wyoming allowed women to vote before any of the other states, and we had the first female governor. So I thought that was really
Who would have
interesting.
thought that Wyoming was so
Yeah,
progressive towards
yeah.
women?
Here is the story of Nellie
Hmm.
Tayloe Ross, as if we've invited her back to Wyoming. It's so lovely to be in the beautiful state of Wyoming to celebrate the 150th anniversary of the Wyoming Territory granting women the right to vote. It's hard to imagine a time when women weren't included in political activities. But here in Wyoming, we can be proud that we were not only the first state to grant women suffrage, but Wyoming is also the first state to have a female governor. Yes, beautiful Wyoming makes me feel so alive. I lived to be 101 years old. I passed on in 1977 in Washington, D.C., and I was laid to rest with my family in Cheyenne, Wyoming. But when I got the invitation to join the celebration here in Rawlins, I had to pick myself up, dust myself off, and come alive again. See, I was always one of those women who didn't want to miss anything, and I certainly couldn't miss this celebration. My name is Nellie Tayloe Ross, and I was the first female governor of the state of Wyoming. Though that role was not in my plans as a young girl, when I married attorney William Ross, I became more aware and concerned with political issues. Growing up watching my own family struggle, I understood what money meant and how it felt to be poor. I really wanted to make a difference. As a member of the Cheyenne Women's Club, I had sharpened my speaking skills as we ladies expressed our political views during meetings. When my husband met with his unfortunate death while serving as the governor of Wyoming, I was nominated to become his replacement in a special election. Now, as you can imagine, at this time, the thought of a woman entering politics caused quite a stir. But United States Senator John B. Kendrick was quoted saying how fitting it was that the equality state be the first to elect a woman governor. So it seems the state was ready to have a woman as their leader. I accepted the nomination and I won the election without even campaigning. I was still mourning the death of my beloved husband, but I didn't let that slow me down. I dug in and carried on with my husband's policies, which included spending cuts, state loans for farmers and ranchers, and strong enforcement of prohibition. I also fought for funding for education, safety for coal miners, protection of women in industrial jobs, and a constitutional amendment that would cut back on child labor. Though the nation had begun to embrace women in positions of power, there was still a stigma to overcome. The press was sometimes critical and unforgiving, but that just made me and my contemporaries more determined. I knew enough to toe the line and keep my feminine identity. I spoke with my soft, girly voice so as not to sound threatening. But my confidence grew as I fired corrupt men, opposed special interest groups, and proved my worth as a politician. When some said that being governor is a man's job, I made clear that indeed it is not a man's job because no man could keep up with me. After losing a re-election, but having gained the respect of my political peers, I was appointed by Franklin D. Roosevelt to serve as the first female director of the Bureau of the Mint. You could say I was swimming in money for the next 20 years. During my retirement, I wrote articles for women's magazines and traveled the world. My legacy is not only that I was Wyoming's first female governor or the United States' first female governor, but that I went against social norms and dared to step into a man's world. I was brave, but not without fear. I was ambitious, but not aggressive. I was feminine, but not weak. Ladies, if I can tell you one thing, it is to stay in your place, whether that place is rocking your babies to sleep. Oh, this makes me tear up. Sorry. Let me start over. Ladies, if I can tell you one thing, it is to stay in your place, whether that place is rocking your babies to sleep, teaching children in the classroom, heading a corporation in the boardroom, or leading the nation in the White House. Ladies, know your place. Thank you all so much for inviting me to share this occasion with you.
Wow, she was
Anyway,
like really
I can't help
special.
but tear up when I start reading that last part because I can only, imagine at that time what it would have been like to step into, like she says, a man's world. It was so different, and it's hard now
for women, and she sounds so ahead of her time.
Yeah. Or maybe it wasn't so different back then. Maybe we haven't progressed as much as we think we have because well, I guess we have, but for her to step out and be that brave and be willing to put herself in the spotlight that way, I'm sure she got a lot of criticism. I'm sure there were people that didn't like it, didn't like the woman being in that place, mostly men that didn't like it because you get stuck.
And she was actually proposing, some women may want to have babies and some may want to, do the business. I mean, that's so ahead of her time. I mean, women were not even working and a lot until
and the message, because I wrote this, but I wrote it from everything I read. I did a lot of research on her, and the message that I got was that she was telling women, be whatever you want to be. Just stay in your place if that's where you want to be.
Right.
So I feel like she was a trailblazer. She was a trailblazer that a lot of people don't even know about. Most people, I didn't know about that until I moved here to Wyoming.
My friend, Richard Lyle, who's an attorney, I think he would like it if I said hello to him, but he's an attorney and he also lives in Wyoming sometimes. And he was telling me about her. And then you told me about her, but I hadn't really thought or learned about her. If I did, I forgot in school.
I never heard. As far as I know, I don't remember her being in the history books or anything either. So that's why we wanted to share this today. We hope that our audience enjoys learning a little bit of history, female history, but also the country's history. And we would love to hear what you think about Nellie Tayloe Ross also in the comments. Yeah.
Please let us know.
Yeah. Inquiring minds want to know. Thank you for joining us and listening in.
And bravo to your reading.
I don't know about that, but thank you.
Well, it's hard to read, especially when you got a lot of facts, right? Anyway. Okay. Well, thank you. And we'll see you next time.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.